Okay, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the General Committee meeting to order. And with that, I will ask Deputy Mayor Armour if you could read the land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robertson-Huron Treaty Number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred places, and take actions towards real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walk in the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations. Miigwech.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Mayor. With that, I do have a motion moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Cloutier. It is recommended that the General Committee meeting agenda dated Wednesday, October 30th, 2024 be adopted as printed and circulated. Question?
Opportunity to speak concerning the request for grandfathering a replacement dock on the 747 Canal property. This property includes 594 feet of undisturbed shoreline that my family and myself have owned and preserved for the last 64 years. In the spring of 2020, the ice and flooding destroyed our existing 64-year-old 60-foot crib dock, along with many other docks on Peninsula Lake. At the time, I was a single caregiver to two palliative family relatives, as well as working, and was unable to remove and recycle the remnants of the dock until August of 2020. I then asked Admiral Docks if they could replace the dock with a 34-foot smaller footprint floater, but unfortunately they could not do so until several months later. The dock remained in place for the new floater dock remained in place for the next 3 years until a retribution complaint from our neighbor at 781 Canal Road. As respectful and good citizen, I followed the town's advice, and a year later received a permit to construct an 8 by 10 foot shoreline jetty upon which you could attach the floating dock. I then discovered that I would have to purchase the entire 594 foot Ontario Shore Road allowance, of which I was unaware. I did not have a dock this summer, eventually the whole year, secondary to compliance with the town's request. I scheduled a staff Zoom meeting and explained my situation, was given 4 options, which were then documented and sent to me. In response, I stated that I would take time to consider all those options and would also address the council with my concerns and a request for relief. At this time, I cannot afford the recommended purchase for the entire Ontario Shore Road allowance for $50,000 in order to construct an 8 by 10 foot jetty on the existing 64-year-old dock site. I would respectfully ask council to allow this non-precedent setting replacement dock on same footprint to be grandfathered and waive requested compensation. If you want to go through the pictures, this above picture is the dock that stood for 3 years most recently. Can you go to the next one, please? The one on the left is historical from 1960. That's myself as a 1-year-old on the bow of the boat. The next one is the dock built in 87. If you go to the next picture, that's the current shoreline on the eastern end. You can see the birch trees as a landmark, and the dock on the shore that we pulled up this summer because we didn't want to conflict. And the next one, next slide, is the Ontario, next one, sorry, just back it up one. That's the full 594 foot undisturbed shoreline, which is rare, if not unique in Penn Lake. It's rock and trees, and fishermen seem to like it. Next one. That's a crop picture, overhead crop picture of the current dock as it floated, just for comparison's sake. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate assistance on this concern.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eklund. Are there questions from committee? from council with respect to this presentation? As you know, we have a report later in the meeting from staff to discuss your doc. So I don't see any questions at this point. So thank you for your presentation, Dr. Eklund, and we will be dealing with the issue, the matter, a bit later in the meeting. All right?
Do you want me to stay on, or what's the normal?
No,
protocol?
you don't have to stay on because it's not the first item up. But we will definitely advise you of the discussion. And if you have time, you could tune into the meeting through webcast to watch the debate, the discussion.
Okay, thank you so much. But this link is I can end this link, right? And go to-
You can absolutely end this link. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Thank you
great.
so much.
Thank you for
Have a
your
good-
presentation, for your deputation this morning. Much
and
appreciated.
Thank everybody today.
Okay, thank
Have
you.
a good day.
Yep, you too. All right, with that, we do have another deputation, and it's with Rebecca Mello, who is here in person, to present her idea around saunas and community wellness. So Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind coming forward, that'd be great. Thank you. And you have to use your mic, and so you just press that little, perfect.
Okay, it's on.
All right.
Great. Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come here and discuss this wellness initiative that I think would be great to have Huntsville implement. I'll just start. Perfect. Okay, so I'll just start with a little bit of background. My name is Rebecca, and I did my university outside of Canada, and I had the opportunity to spend half a year in Norway from January to June of 2022. And when I was there, pretty much all winter long, I was able to learn a lot about the Norwegian culture and how huge they are on outdoor recreation and how much they love the outdoors, way more than I had expected. I think one of the huge things was they really like country skiing, cross-country skiing, and you would see them night and day pulling their kids on sleds with dogs all the time, cross-country skiing any moment that they could, outdoor picnics, outdoor barbecues, outdoor birthday parties all winter long. They really loved the outdoors. But I think that the biggest thing that I took away was the sauna culture that is a huge part of Scandinavian culture. And so at the university that I was at, they had a cold plunging club. And so we would meet once a week to go take a dip into the frozen lake. And if you go to the Oslo Fjord, right by the waterfront, they had a bunch of saunas that you could rent for your own personal use, drop in and meet other people. Social events were hosted there. So they were really big on sauna culture. And there was saunas with bars, saunas with DJs, like it was a huge thing. So I learned a lot about the Norwegian like outdoor recreation culture. And then when I came back, I was driving up to Huntsville, and I saw at the Gravenhurst Airport, there's a sign that says the Little Norway Memorial. And so I was very curious about Norwegian history in Muskoka, and I started looking more into Scandinavian immigration into Muskoka, and I found out that there was a huge Norwegian presence in Muskoka during World War II when the Royal Norwegian Air Force initially had a training base in Toronto Island at Billy Bishop Airport, but when they outgrew that space, they got to use the airport in Gravenhurst. And so at one point, there was over 3,000 Norwegian Royal Air Force personnel in this area. And there was so many Norwegians that Gravenhurst became known as Little Norway. And then I found out, just by reading and doing more research, that they actually bought a recreational property in Limberlost, right up here in Huntsville. And that's where the Royal Air Force could come and recreate, relax, spend time outdoors. And you see in the very bottom picture, they used to do a lot of cross-country skiing right here in our backyard. And then I did some more research. There was a huge Icelandic settlement in Hekla, that's out by Rosso. At one point, there was 20% of the population of Iceland living in Canada before they moved to Halliburton because Hekla was too cold. Bracebridge, there's a lot of German Obviously, that's not Scandinavian, but it still has an influence in how that society developed. And then finally, in Parry Sound, there was a huge Finnish immigration. And so, fun fact about Finland, there's 5.5 million people in Finland, and there are 3.3 million saunas in Finland. And they did a study of Finnish sauna users over 20 years, and they found out that 20 minutes of use in a sauna reduces your risk of death by a cardiac event by 52%. So we can understand why Scandinavian people are so happy and so healthy, because they spend so much time outdoors. So let's talk about the benefits of sauna and cold plunging, which is used usually together, so hot and cold therapy. So in combination, hot and cold therapy is really good for boosting blood circulation and the circulation of nutrients throughout your body. It's good for relaxing sore muscles and limbs, treating edema, reducing the inflammation of soft tissue. It boosts your mood. It improves your sleep. It helps to regulate your blood pressure and blood sugar levels. It helps to pump the lymph system in your body. And another benefit is that it helps in the creation of heat shock proteins, which these proteins help to recycle damaged proteins in your body. And it helps to initiate your internal antioxidant system. So there's a lot of benefits to using hot and cold therapy, but also there's social benefits because you're spending your time away from your phone, meeting other people, just being in the present. So we can see that there's a lot of benefits to using hot and cold therapy. And so the idea that I came to share with you is similar to what they have in Norway, as you can see in these photos. This is right in the Oslo Fjord. They had even floating saunas that you could rent and take out into the water. And so the idea is, I think this would be an incredible idea to bring this Nordic concept to Huntsville, right on the docks in town, because not only would it be incentivizing business and tourism during the winter, but it would also be giving people an outdoor recreational opportunity that would be incentivizing the development of healthy habits. And it would also be tapping into the culture and heritage of this area. So I think it would be an incredible idea to have this on the town docks, just like you see, and we could have events or private bookings or meetups just to also promote community and people meeting together that have common goals of taking care of their health. So in summary, we can see that there are many benefits to having these saunas in Huntsville, not only socially, physically, economically, mentally, emotionally, but also culturally, because we're learning more about the heritage that these early settlers came and had a big impact in the society that we live in right now. And finally, I think that Huntsville should pride itself in offering something that is not available anywhere else. You can't find this concept anywhere else. And Huntsville would be spearheading this wellness initiative by implementing these saunas on the docks. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. I love saunas, by the way. I think they're great. And for doing all of the research too. That was really interesting to hear about the history of around here and our Scandinavian connections. Are there questions from council? Yes, Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, thank you, Rebecca, for the presentation, and thank you for thinking of Huntsville for this concept, because I think, and I just want to share something private, but I recently spent a week with my mother down in Sarnia, and she's part of the Cold Plunge Society, and she's 86 years old, and every day she goes into the water, and it's about 14 degrees, and she absolutely loves it, and she is so healthy. So I would be 100% in favor of the idea of a sauna. I just want to throw it out there too, that there may be some legal, I'm sure the town will come up some legal and insurance things to look at, but you know what, we don't want to be discouraged by that. But this is something, thank you for bringing it forward. And if we can go forward with something, I would happily be involved with it. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for that. It's interesting that in the audience, we do have two executive directors of the Huntsville Festival of the Arts and of the Chamber. So it's sort of an interesting crowd to have here for your presentation, just saying. Any other questions from council? Yes, Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thank you. Through you, just a quick question. The saunas you're talking about, are they mainly wet or dry saunas?
They're dry saunas and they're heated with a wood stove typically. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. It has a wood stove inside and then rocks, and then you just pour water. Yeah, it's a dry sauna, I think.
I just spent a week in one of those. It's fabulous.
I know, and as I recall, you said you had a very good week. So there we go.
Anyone that's ever had that experience doing sauna or cold plunging, you understand how incredible it makes you feel. I remember I spoke to you, Nancy, and you said that you grew up with that in your backyard. So if you've used it, you know how great it is and how great it makes you feel after.
Absolutely, I do recall some. Yeah, it was great having that. And we used to plunge in Lake Ontario, and it was cold. It was really cold. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any. So Rebecca, what happens when there's a deputation at the beginning of the meeting? We will discuss your particular item at the end of our meeting under new business.
Okay.
So I would suggest you probably don't want to hang around because it's right at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
But someone will reach out to you to let you know what
Perfect.
happened.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Okay, so with that, we are moving to our divisional reports, and I'm going to turn over the chair to Councillor Schumacher to take over for community services. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. We are on to 6.1.1, and we have Jacqueline here to talk about report number CS 2024-12, the Huntsville Sport Hall of Fame Agreement. And I will read. I have a motion moved by Councillor Fitzgerald and seconded by Councillor Mayor Alcock. It is recommended that staff be directed to enter into an agreement with the Huntsville Sport Hall of Fame, HFHF, for 5 years with an option to extend for an additional 5 years for a total of 10 years. And further, that the agreement set out the provisions outlined in report CS 2024-12, namely the use of a meeting room once a month at the Canada Summit Centre at no charge based on availability. 2, waiving of the rental fee of their annual gala at the town facility set out in the fees and charges bylaw, again based on availability. And number 3, appoint a town staff person to liaise with the HSHF and attend meetings as time and resources allow. And further, that the agreement be completed to the satisfaction of the Chief Administrative Officer and the Director of Community Services. And further, that the Director of Community Services and Manager of Recreation, Culture, and Heritage be authorized to sign all necessary documentation. And Jacqueline's here to speak.
Thank you, Schumacher. I just wanted to know when I bought a new house, or I guess it's an old house, a Century Home here in Huntsville, and the wallpaper was made of newspaper that had Dutch writing. So there's also Dutch ancestry here. So that was pretty fun. My girlfriend's Dutch. And I'm like, what language is this? So just an interesting fact in terms of our diversity here in our community. And I just wanted to say, like so many of our volunteer-led organizations that fulfill dozens of roles that meet our residents' needs, invigorate our community, create inclusive economic opportunities, and promote active democracy and community-responsive policy, the Huntsville Sports Hall of Fame provides public benefit to our town by recognizing athletes, coaches, managers, builders, and teams for their valuable contribution to sporting excellence within our community. The work that is not only important in recognizing the inductees and award recipients, but for inspiring future generations to compete, coach, and contribute in other ways to our sporting community. So with that, I will turn it over if you have any questions with respect to the report.
Are there any questions for Jacqueline? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Okay, on to the next one. You're still in the hot seat. Much anticipated one.
I
hear we have a
appreciate.
couple members in the audience here for this
do
as well.
I
So,
do appreciate these being back to back.
yes, we worked on it that way. Okay, and I totally have lost my agenda. So, pardon? I just want the number. Now it's really small. 6.1.2. Thank you. 6.1.2, and what is the report?
CS.
Yep.
2004.
CS 2004.
Dash 15.
Okay, dash 15. Okay, I have a motion moved by Mayor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Stone. It is recommended that an agreement be entered into with the selected artist, Brian Faubert, to carry out, I might have screwed that name up, did I? No? Okay. To carry out the design, fabrication, and installation of a permanent work of art in Kent Park. And further that the agreement be completed to the satisfaction of the Chief Administrative Officer and the Director of Community Services. And further that the Director of Community Services and Manager of Recreation, Culture, and Heritage be authorized to sign all necessary documentation. And further that the selected artist be paid by the town in 4 installments. 20% upon signing agreement and receipt of any documentation required by the town, 30% upon submission of detailed design drawings to the town satisfaction, 30% upon acceptable on-site inspection by the town, and 20% upon transfer of ownership. And Jacqueline's here to speak to the report.
Thank you. So I just want to say that this was a very rewarding and a very difficult process. We had over 40 submissions, wonderful artwork, and we applaud all the artists who submitted. It was a very diverse group in terms of the use of materials and supplies and designs, and this is never an easy process to carry out. I want to thank for sure our working group. Some members here are in the audience here today, and we have some with us online. We had members of the Huntsville Lake of Bays Chamber of Commerce, Huntsville Arts Society, Huntsville Festival of the Arts, Muskoka Arts and Crafts, Downtown Huntsville BIA, and our Councillor Renwick, who provided their guidance, their expertise, and a considerable amount of time in coming to this decision. And yes, we're happy to announce that Brian Faubert is the artist that was selected. He is a metal sculptor with a Master's of Fine Arts from the University of Calgary. His family actually has a cottage on 6 Mile Lake in the area. His processes are varied and they range from welding to flame drawing. He uses these techniques to create works that cast a playful network of shadows that can be appreciated both with the passing of the sun during the day and by way of lighted elements during the nighttime. So his intention is to strategically locate a number of sculptures within the park, some flora, some fauna, some animals, all native to our area, and adding to the site's natural beauty and merging the works into the surroundings, thus transforming the space into a sculptural garden. So again, I would like to thank our working group for all of the hard work that they put into it. I'd like to thank the artists for all of their time in putting together their applications and submitting to the call. And with that, I will turn it over to you. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mayor Alcock?
Thank you, Chair Schumacher, and really not a question, it's a comment that I am so thrilled to be at this point today and that we have this recommendation. I echo what you just said about thanking the working group. I really applaud the efforts and all of the work that the working group put in to this. Also, Councillor Renwick. I think of past processes that were less than stellar, and from what I can see and I've heard, this has been an unbelievably great process, and so thank you, Jacqueline, as well. And at the end of the day, it's so cool to have 40 applications, and I don't know how the group did it, actually. I think it's yeoman's effort, and I have to say I really, really love the end product, the the final finalist that you're recommending. I'm excited, and it'll be really cool when it's finally done. So thank you.
Councillor Renwick?
Thank you, Chair Schumacher, and through you, thank you, Jacqueline, for the report. And I just want to echo what the mayor has said, that this group worked very, very well together, and it was really by your leadership. And I just want to make the CAO know that the work that Jacqueline has put in and the way she sort of guided us and helped us steer the ship of doing this, it was a huge project. So my hat goes off to you, Jacqueline. Thank you so much. And I am very excited to have art in downtown. Of course I am. It's and the selection is going to be tremendous, and it really will bring some life and some really excellent energy to Kent Park. So congratulations to the group and to you as well, Jacqueline, and to this council for permitting it to happen. So thank you.
Councillor Stone?
Thank you. This is exciting, and I love the number of pieces that will be throughout. It's not just one stagnant piece in a corner. So I do have a couple questions, actually. So the sketches in our package are against a photograph in the park. Is that depicting a relative size?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Schumacher. Yes, they are in some ways lifelike sizes. He uses these two-dimensional drawings to make three-dimensional work, is how he explained it to me the other day. So yeah, there will be several smaller pieces, hopefully a few larger pieces that are integrated into the park, which was actually a direction of our community was, let's have something that, adds to the beauty as opposed to just, one thing that maybe stands out and is
Yes.
not incorporated into the work.
It'll be a huge impact. It's just very exciting. Now, the reality of vandalism comes to mind, and will people try and ride these and bend them? And I just, and what about repairs should they be damaged?
Through your chair, Schumacher. So we can't necessarily deter all vandalism. The material that is used is steel. It is somewhat vandal-proof. He will be working with an engineer to try to shore them up as much as possible so that there is no, there's no ability to bend them or anything like that. Before I was here, I came from Aurelian. We put in an art installation there. I bike around there on a regular basis, and so far none of those pieces have been vandalized over the last 2 years, so there is hope. But yeah, so between the engineer, working with an engineer, the work itself is easier to, they put on a graffiti coating. That will be something we can recommend to the artist to deter that and make it easier to take off paint. Because it is a metal, you can also, grind that off as well. So yeah, so there's some things that we can do to help preserve them longer in our park.
Thank you. We should never not do something because of potential vandalism. So I love it. Let's go.
Mayor Alcock, did you have?
No, my apologies. I was just going to ask that the diagrams be put up on the screen. So the screen. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Renwick?
Thank you, Chair Schumacher, for indulging me. But just one last comment, really, to people that are listening as well. Just a reminder that the payment for this art installation comes from the HMATA funding that we have, the municipal tax, the accommodation tax, as well as the art acquisition fund that is set up. And that acquisition fund is money that when paintings are sold in any of our local or in Partners Hall or at the Summit Center, 20% of each sale goes into that acquisition fund. So it's not on taxpayers' dollars. So just to reiterate that.
Okay, I will just echo, love the concept, love the work that the group did. Jacqueline, I noticed a couple are on the rocks, but there are still, I know people call it our rock park down there. But there are still, some people use those to sit on. There's still an ability for people to congregate there and around this, correct?
Correct. We will work with, part of the next steps, we'll be working with the artist to finalize the designs. And we'll be mindful, working with operations who are also sitting in the crowd coming up next, but, just to make sure that they don't interfere with kind of the maintenance of the park, the usage of the park. They're meant to add, sit there with our lovely bear or the deer or whatnot and enjoy the park peacefully. So we will make sure that those are in places kind of throughout so that they don't completely interfere with the use.
Any other questions or comments? No? Then I will call the question. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Oh, I guess I get to turn it over to Councillor Fitzgerald, who's here to take over his chair.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. I'm going to read the report highlights on this one as well as the motion. I think Tina and Brandon are coming down. The town of Huntsville Heritage Brunel lift locks are in need of significant repairs, and the extent of the structural issues is not currently known. This report seeks approvals to hire an engineer to perform an inspection and assessment of the locks and provide a 10-year restoration plan for the related assets. So it is recommended that a structural assessment of the Brunel lift locks and related assets be included in the 2025 draft capital budget fund from the Parks Capital Reserve for consideration. Tina, Brandon.
All right. Good morning, Council. Through you, Chair Fitzgerald. This morning, Brandon and myself are going to discuss, report to you about the Brunel locks. The pictures that were shown in the report. I'm going to go through that and explain the operational side of things that happens at the lock and what we're looking at. And Brandon is going to then discuss the plan we've come up with and hoping that we can put it in the 2025 budget, looking down the road for repairs for the locks. So in your report, you've seen some pictures. So at the top of Fairy Lakeside, you'll see there's a dock with plywood. So that's been like that for 2 years. The retaining wall in behind and underneath that plywood is deteriorating. So this is where boaters have to pull up to tie up to the dock. And this is where people come into the park, enjoy picnics, pay for their pass, visit the locks, see how the operation works. So this dock is very important that we have this, or boaters are going to have a hard time coming in to enjoy the locks. Going into the next is going towards the interlocking stone. This year we started seeing some deteriorating of underneath the interlocking stone. We're losing material. So about every 4 weeks, staff has to pail over dirt and compact it in and replace the interlocking stone. Becomes a massive hole that's starting to happen. Moving down the locks, we have our main doors that we do open to let the boaters in. So back in 2015 or 14, one of the 2 years, we did put up new, what's the word I'm looking for? The piers. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank this morning.
Just the wood piers.
The wood piers that the employees use to open and close the gates. I took a picture of that just to show you that I'm no engineer, but they do still have a lot of life in them, but they are starting to deteriorate. So the doors themselves, as you can see in some of the pictures, you'll see the water coming through. And in one of the other pictures, you can definitely see right through where you can see through to the other side. So the seal has let go. So that being said, the rubber is gone, and now the backup seal, which is your board, is supposed to hold the water. That being said, now with that water going through, it's warping that wood. So eventually, there'll be nothing holding that water in. Going down the locks, and just bear in mind, just being on site with an engineer, the walls themselves, the cement walls, actually don't look that bad. So we're lucky there. These are just, day-to-day operations of things that we need to use is wear and tear. Going down, back in 2017, They did a repair at the locks. So you'll see the 2x12 and 2x10s that they use to put over top of the retaining wall that's there. It is deteriorating, and so the wood that they put there, this is now has nothing to hold to because the wood in behind has completely rotted. So this summer, the wood has let go, so we did have to caution tape off. And this is very important because people coming from Mary Lake, this is where they need to tie up their boats. This is where they need to get in and out of the locks. This is where they need to come up to the lock and say they're here, because sometimes the attendants don't see them because they're on the other side of the park. So this is a very important part of the locks as well. Before I hand this over to Brandon, I really want to stress to council, this is a historic park. There is a lot of people that use this park. A lot of people across Canada come here, all over Ontario. And a lot of people, your local, Huntsville, Port Sydney, our ratepayers use this park constantly. They're always here fishing. This is not just a user group. This is not just one individual. This is everybody in the community. We've made it accessibility at the top of the park. A lot of people come to this park, and I can't stress this enough. This is a main park, just like Rivermill Park. So I did go through your boating. So our high months in July and August, we see over 500 to 600 people because we count them. We count boats, but these are the people that are in the boat. So this just tells you between 500 and 600 people in July and August come by boat. I want you to understand that our local people come by foot, and that park is always busy. Year round, they're fishing, they come here for picnics, and I can't stress this enough. So we want to see this park stay open and active and operating. We have to start looking at budgeting for this park. So in that time, I'm going to hand it over to Brandon to bring up the engineer side of things.
Thanks, Tina, and through you, Chair. So as you've heard, and then the pictures don't lie. There's the locks do have some deficiencies within them. We have reached out to some other municipalities, such as Port Carling, for what they had to do for their locks and the assessments that they did on that. The engineer that we did talk to, they were the ones that were involved with the project, so they kind of guided us through what we might like to do. Instead of just fixing this as it happens, we want to be proactive. We want to, what we're looking to do is go through the RFP process through our procurement to retain an engineer to do a full assessment of the entire locks and the system. So there's many, many components to those locks. So what this report's going to provide us is almost the same as our structural inspections. There's many components to a structure. So they lay out certain things that might have to be fixed 1 to 3 years, 5 to 6 years, 6 to 10 years. So it lays out a 10-year plan is what we're looking for. So we can budget efficiently over those years and fix things as they're required. So that's what we're looking to do. And as Tina said, it's a landmark. It's a heritage place, and we want to make sure that that we can stay on top of that and not come to you and say we need $500,000 today. We'd like to be proactive and lay that out over time, and that report's also going to help us understand what we need to do. One important thing to point out is through this study is there could potentially be a part B, and I think it's very important that we understand that. Part A of what we're looking to do is you bring in divers. Divers are going to go in and they're going to look at the bottom of all this. If they happen to see something that they need to recommend dewatering, that was one thing that we had talks with an engineer that was involved with the Port Carling locks, is that in order to dewater those locks, it will come with a cost. And they're saying it's around $100,000 to dewater that. When the water goes down on the locks, we've done an initial inspection, and it, as Tina mentioned, it seems to be fine. But I do just want to point out that there's no surprises. There could be a part B to that, depending on what these divers find. But we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But it is important that you are aware that could happen. So with that, I mean, again, RFP process, we want to do a full inspection of the entire locks. The other part that we're going to ask in the RFP is, repair methods and, any different types of material that can still keep its heritage look, but maybe get us more longevity than just wood or something like that. So that's what we're looking to do.
Thanks, Brandon. I will go to questions. Councillor Cluche.
Through you, Chair. We definitely need this park. It's a big, in my ward, and it's well used. The parking lot's full all the time. People walking there, everything. It's a pretty well-used area. I'm just wondering, is there any grants available because it's a historic? Is there any government grants available to help cover the cost on this? Has that been looked into?
So I am in the middle right now of looking into some grants. I'm also reached out to the MNRF. So I'm just waiting to set up a date with them to see about partnership as well.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tina. I didn't see hands go up, so I'll go to Councillor Renwick and then to the mayor and then to
Thank you,
Deputy Mayor
Chair
Armour.
Fitzgerald, and thank you for the report. And I completely agree with you that this is a very, very well-used part of our town and a lot of people go to. Now, if you could just put a sauna there too, that would be wonderful. But just to be clear, you're saying that it would be a $40,000 potential assessment just for the 2025 budget, just to do an overview of what we are looking at. And then from that, you're saying that if that assessment says we may need to de-water it, I love that term. I've never heard that term before. So they could come through the assessment. They might say you'll have to get rid of the water and look at it again. So, and that's $100,000 process potentially. Yeah, I guess it's more of a comment than a question. But the 40,000, it's a clarification. So the 40,000 is just the assessment cost. Yeah.
Yeah, I could explain that through you, Chair. The 40,000 is for the consultant to go in and just do their diving, their initial assessment, visual. They'll do a bunch of sounding on the concrete and all that type of stuff to see if there's any voids. They'll look at all the wood from top to bottom and underwater. So we don't anticipate to have to de-water. It was just important that it was through the locks in Port Carling. That was one thing that did come up. So I just want to make it beware that there is that potential should they see that. But from our initial assessment, it doesn't seem to be too bad on the concrete part of things, but we'll know more once we do the assessment.
Thanks, Brandon. Your worship.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. I just want to say I appreciated this report. I think that having been around the table when we discussed it and noticing the dates and the history in your report, I was reminded of the necessity back then, and we were really hopeful that we would get a big grant that would help us, which you made reference to. And I really do appreciate the fact that this is well used. It's historical and important to our community. So what I like about the report is it's very considered in its approach, which is, we do need to do the engineering, the structural assessment. And without that, we might as well not bother. So as a first step, and once that's done, you come back and it's looking at 10 years out and what can we do? And so from that perspective, I think, that's the absolute right approach. And I completely support this.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Fitzgerald. Really don't have a lot of questions. I'm just maybe more so for staff or yourselves about the Port Carling locks being district ran, district owned, district paid for. Now, I think part of the criteria for a lock system to be ran by the district, it has to serve more than one municipality, which our lock does. It serves Lake Bays as well as Huntsville. So I wonder if anybody's ever researched. I think we did past, but maybe we should go down that road again to see if district has any opportunity to invest in this lock system because it serves 2 municipalities within our district.
Interesting comment, Deputy Mayor Armour. I have a few comments. I'll wait till we go around. Councillor Cluche had a question, and I'll go to. We'll go to our CAO first. Sorry,
I was going to
Councillor
say,
Cluche.
that's fine.
Thank you, Chair Fitzgerald. So I have had the same conversation with CAO Stevens and suggested perhaps that the district could take ownership, and it was advised at that time that it did not qualify for district ownership, and based on the fact that it had to serve multiple municipalities, and I can certainly follow up again, but I did inquire and was told that it would not qualify for district ownership.
Councillor Cluche?
Thank you, Chair. Just another thing, looking forward, if this work is being done, how much service interruption are we talking? Like shut down for one summer, do you think, or just, I know it's a crystal ball, but just so that people might know.
Brandon brought his crystal ball today.
Yeah.
Through you, Chair. It's a little bit premature to say how much that's going to affect until we actually have the assessment. So the assessment's going to tell us what we need to do. When we get that assessment, we can report back, obviously, and see what kind of ramifications it may have on those locks. We don't know the extent of any repairs at this point to say, you know, the purpose of this report and what we're looking for through the procurement process is an assessment that's laid out over 10 years. So it's not like we're gonna, you know, our intent wouldn't be to shut it down for one summer and do it all. We would, you know, we might do 2 weeks worth of work on it one year and 3 weeks the next year, depending on the components that we have to fix. But we can definitely report back with that assessment once it's completed, and we'll have a better idea of what we may need to do. Depending on it, we may have to close it for, say, one season to do it all. But we just want to see what that looks like over a 10-year plan.
Thanks, Brandon. Councillor Renwick, you've changed your mind, or you
I've
still have a
changed my
question?
mind. Thank you. Yes.
Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. Absolutely, we need to look after the locks. I agree. It's a well-used property. I guess just a quick question is, if you know, if we're already aware of all the issues, I'm just wondering, is the assessment absolutely necessary? I guess that is my question. And the second question is, I guess for Tina, I think Councillor Cloutier asked this, but so the grants that you're looking for, is that specifically for the cost of the assessment?
Tina?
So right now, what I'm looking at, I haven't heard much back. So I'm hoping we can lump everything into a grant. But for your first question, I'm no engineer. So I can say it's falling apart. We can get contractors in. I can't see what's underneath the water. We've never had anybody really come in and do a full inspection. So stuff behind the doors could be crumbling, and I don't know. So I think it would be best for the town to have somebody come in to do an assessment so that we don't miss something and we have surprises later. That's just my personal opinion.
Brandon?
Through you, Chair, thanks. Just to add to that, right now we're seeing a lot of surface deficiencies within the locks. That doesn't really show us what's happening underneath. And as you can see in some of these pictures, there is issues happening underneath. So, and Tina mentioned, we don't have an assessment on the locks that lays this out. You know, every 5 years we're doing a road needs study. Every 2 years we have to do our bridge studies. We do have a large structure that is located in Huntsville. It's heritage. I think it's time that we get that full assessment of what we have, what is there, and what condition it's in. It may come back and say that everything's good and we're fixing just the plywood and the wood, but maybe with a different type of material. I don't know at this point, but we are starting to see a decline in that structure. So I think, you know, in my opinion, to this council is I would recommend we just get that assessment to tell us what we have, what the condition is, and what we need to do moving forward.
Thanks, Brandon. Follow up? Any further questions, Deputy Mayor Armour?
Thanks, Chair Fitzgerald. Just a quick one. So the 40,000, you think that's just more of a ballpark, or is that, or does that have contingency built into it?
Brandon?
Through you, Chair. So we did reach out to a consultant that gave us a fairly ballpark price of what it would be. They were heavily involved in other locks as well, so we were pretty confident in that cost can do the initial assessment.
Follow up, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you very much. Just a quick one. So that would include the dive and all reports coming out after that?
Through you, Chair, that's correct. So it just consists of the divers coming in, the consultants compiling all the information. They'll be doing the surface works. The consultants, the divers will go in, take pictures of what's underneath, how things look, and report back to the consultant. So we'll get a report back basically with the details that we lay out in the RFP. So we want to know conditions, components, lifespans, repair methods, and it'll come with costs. So that'll all be laid out in the report.
Thanks, Brandon. Just a few comments. So for 10 years, we've been kind of band-aiding this situation. So I think it's fantastic that we're coming up with a 10-year plan to see what's required. And as far as the engineer's report, no one's qualified to make any assessment other than an engineer. You know, we assess our playgrounds on a regular basis. That's how much we have a responsibility to our community members here. So I think we have no option but to do that. It really interests me how the locks are set up in Muskoka. Some are owned by Infrastructure Ontario, some are owned by the district, and here we're a municipality, we own this one solely. So it's our baby, we have to take care of it. I wonder if there's an opportunity in all this to get some AOTA grants to be AOTA compliant as well. So, no further questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Tina. Deputy Mayor Armour, I'm going to pass it over to you for Development Services.
Thanks, Councillor Fitzgerald. We're going to move on to 6.3, Development Services. So we have Lauren McDermott here, 6.3.1. It's report number DEV 2024-66, Muskoka Community Fund recommendation. And I do have a motion that I'll read. So it's moved by Mayor Alcock, seconded by Councillor Morrison. Whereas Resolution GC 41-24 directed staff to investigate the feasibility of establishing a Huntsville Community Fund, HCF, and report back to Council or General Committee with the findings. Now therefore be it recommended that the HCF operated by Muskoka Community Foundation be established, and further that the newly established HCF be used to collect donor dollars to support future council approved projects and initiatives. And further that staff be directed to work with the MCF to develop the HCF agreement to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Services and Strategy. And further that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the HCF agreement. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you and good morning. So through you, Chair, the Muskoka Community Foundation, MCF, was founded in 2007 to help donors reach their philanthropic goals and to promote the important role charities play in supporting Muskoka. So staff recommend that the Huntsville Community Fund operate by collecting donor dollars to support specific theme projects or initiatives as identified by the town. So this can be done as a generic fund and or have separate projects set up within that fund. So you can have both options. And at this time, staff did not consider the fund for the Community Financial Request Program, for we want to continue to give funds to grassroots initiatives and not-for-profit organizations. Whereas the fund, if it was to handle the Community Financial Request Program, it would be restricted to registered charitable organizations and qualified donees. So it's important to note that once a donation to the community fund is received and a charitable receipt is issued, gifts cannot be returned to the donor. So as we begin working on setting up the different projects, you just want to make sure that there's support to carry through because you will not be able to refund those dollars. So I'm here to answer any additional questions you may have.
Do we have any questions on this? Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Armour. Just a question. Thank you for the report, Lauren. And I think it is something that I think would be very beneficial to Huntsville. Are there any other municipalities that you know of outside of, there's the Muskoka Community Fund, but does Bracebridge or Gravenhurst or anyone else have a?
So through you, Chair. So there's funds within Muskoka that exist. So there's the Lake of Bays one, but they did more of a focus on the community kind of financial request program, but they are again limited to the registered charities. So that was kind of one of the things that we noted when we looked at it, that that would be challenging. Also because we have that relationship with HMATA as our tourism entity when grants are coming, or when requests come, when requests come forward, it would be more challenging with a third party to determine if it was relevant to tourism or not. So we figured that that would be something that would be best currently at this time to remain with staff. So that's why we were looking at more of just a generic kind of fund. So when there's opportunities, council could then say, let's pull from that fund to support this project. And then there was some examples within the report of other outside of the municipality or District of Muskoka.
Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Armour. Great report. Thanks, Lauren. And I totally in favor of this. I'm curious about the timing. If we say go forth and come work on the agreement, what your idea, how long that might take? Given there are a couple of other examples, this Lake of Bays one, even though it's not exactly the same, it's similar. Right? I was just curious about timing.
So through you, Chair Armour. So it may take a few months to set up, but it could be up and running for 2025, I believe. It would be, the first steps would to be work on the agreement and then see with the actual Muskoka Community Fund to consult with them and make sure. If council was wanting specific projects, we'd have to make sure that it worked with those and that it could actually be implemented. So that's what they were asking, is that they were consulted and included in the process. But for more of a generic overarching fund, I could see it being able to be implemented for 2025. I can't give you exact timelines, but I don't know if Director Frame wanted to expand on that, but the agreement would be
That's fine.
starting
That's good.
point.
I appreciate the response. Thanks.
I think the CEO wants to chime in.
Thank you very much, Chair Armour. So just to follow up on Councillor Renwick's question, the other municipality that considered this a couple weeks ago was Muskoka Lakes, and their council declined moving forward with it.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Armour. So is this different than community services having that pot of money that people come to for, I think we've used it for community living or whatever to offset costs. That's different because they're using facilities. Is that correct?
So through you, Chair Armour. So that's the Community Financial Requests Program. And so at this time, we're not recommending changing that. So it would be technically different. But this fund would allow more of the flexibility in discussing with the Muskoka Community Foundation. It's allowing for community needs, and it cannot be economic needs. So like we can't say a parking garage, but it allows a capacity to fundraise and for other individuals in the community to contribute. So let's just say, as an example, I'm not saying that this is something that we're going to do, but say you wanted to fundraise for a library or something, and then you could have community members then put their funds into that. And at this point in time, we did not proceed with including the Community Financial Request Program.
Okay. And then I guess my follow-up sort of, but I think I answered through you, is I believe Gravenhurst has the TAPE grant, but that would be similar to our community services.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions around the table? Not seeing any. I guess I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. All done. So we're going to move on to 6.3.2, and Lauren's staying with us. It's report number DEV 2024-67, and it's physician recruitment update. And do I have a motion? I do have a motion on this one too. It's moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Whereas council approved the physician incentive of $60,000 for each physician taking over an existing practice. and up to 80,000 for each physician taking a new practice through Resolution 91-24. And whereas it has been identified there's an opportunity for physicians taking over existing practice to have the capacity to also take patients off the unattached patient list. Now, therefore, it is recommended that staff be authorized to update the financial component of the physician incentive program to include the offer of $70,000 per physician that take over an existing practice and take more than 200 Huntsville patients off the Algonquin Family Health Team wait list. And it's all yours.
Okay, through you, Chair Armour. So this is a really exciting one. With the urgent need for family physicians in Huntsville, Town Council supported the development of a physician incentive program back in May 27, 2024. So since launching the program in June 2024, which was only a few months ago, the program has resulted in the following. So 2 physicians have signed the agreement. One is establishing a new practice, which is really exciting. And then also, of course, one is taking over an existing practice. So that's amazing results so far. And then one physician is also in the process of signing, and they're also planning to establish a new practice. And then we have about 3 more physicians who are anticipated to sign for summer 2025. All 3 would consider taking over an existing practice. However, with the motion put forward today, they may consider even taking on additional patients from the wait list. So then the town's incredibly thrilled to welcome these new physicians and recommends the dedicated efforts of our physician recruitment team. And commends the dedicated efforts of our physician recruitment team and the hard work of physician lead, Dr. Melanie Marr. We're also very thankful for the guidance of community-based family physicians, including Dr. Matthews, Dr. Dufour Lamontagne, Dr. Bozek, Dr. Fennel, Dr. Fioretto, and the AFHT Executive Director, Janine Vanden Heuvel. So this thank you also extends to those who have been involved in the entire attraction process, including the entire Algonquin Family Health Team administration team and the Muskoka Area Ontario Healthcare Team, which we refer to as the MAOT. So with the program underway, it has been identified that there's an opportunity for physicians taking over existing practices to have the capacity to also take on additional patients off of the unattached patient wait list. Therefore, in this report today, we're recommending to update the financial component of the physician incentive program to also include the offer of $70,000 per physician to take over an existing practice, but take on more than 200 patients off of the Huntsville specific wait list. One thing also just to note, especially for residents, this announcement's very exciting news. However, please do not call or contact the Algonquin Family Healthcare Team or the physician offices directly to inquire about the new physician or waitlist status as they get settled into the community. As you can imagine, it may be a bit overwhelming if they continue to get lots of calls. There is a process in place for managing the waitlist. So please note that there's a process in place. If you are on the waitlist, it will be followed up with. And residents that are an unattached patient who don't know if they are on the wait list, you can go to algonquinfamilyhealthcareteam.ca/need-a-doctor. So there's a link for that. We will post it on our social media channels as well, but that's where you would sign up. So if you are currently reading this report or listening today and you're not sure if you're on the wait list, go and sign up on the wait list. But otherwise, we're really excited and thrilled to welcome the new physicians to the community, and they will get settled. And with that, I just wanted to hand over to Councillor Stone and Councillor Morrison to touch on the really important community-supported incentives that we've been able to also collect. So I don't know who would want to go first, but.
Councillor Stone.
I'm going to let Councillor Morrison speak about the added value from our local businesses, but I'm going to say that last week my wife came home from work, and typically I said, "How was your day?" And atypically, she said, "It was fantastic." She's admin for a local health hub, and she had to make some calls to bring people off the wait list, and they were emotional and excited, wanted to reach through the phone and give her a kiss. It was a great day for her. So people who have been waiting for up to 4 years on the wait list finally have a doctor. And that's very exciting. And so it's not our legislated responsibility for healthcare. However, this council can be very proud of what we're doing for our citizens.
Councillor Morrison.
How do you follow that up? That's the best news ever. So good. And you actually asked your wife how her day is. Way to go, Bob. You're making us look bad. Goes without saying, I'm beyond excited about this. In my wildest dreams, I couldn't imagine it being this successful this quick. A lot of people to thank, but I want to give a huge thank you to Lauren McDermott. It was a lot of work to get to this point. A lot of work. And as much as Bob and I would bring up the ideas and do things, Lauren was implementing. The amount of emails and calls, not just to us, but to the physicians, to legal, to everything else, we wouldn't have got here without your efforts. And even this amendment today, recognizing that for a small increase, we can get 200 people at a time off the wait list. That was you, and I appreciate everything you've done, keeping us in line, which is not easy, but also doing so much. So it's been tremendous. And we basically built a program from scratch in a very quick amount of time. Like, it's unheard of. So I'm so excited, and we've had a lot of fun working with Lauren on this. I want to quickly do it because I think it's time to recognize some of the businesses that have got involved. And I would love to say everything they're doing, but I'll just mention the names so that people in the public know how many local businesses are helping out. So I'll start off with the Drive Muskoka, which is Hyundai, Honda, and Dodge in Huntsville, a significant investment. Ward Edmonds GM, Three Guys in a Stove, Downtown Espresso, Mulligan's Golf Lounge, Family Place, Little Place by the Lights, Tall Trees, Sandhill Nurseries, Muskoka Puppy Yoga, Club Link, Hidden Valley Ski Hill, Dowdy and Dowdy, John Messick and Chris Watson Lawyers, Dexter Pereira, accountant at BDO, Larry Greenwood with Capstone Market and Tim Hortons, Ravi Prasher, who owns the Hindu temple in town, a meal per day for a year for any doctor that wants to go. Approximately 15 realtors getting involved with an incentive plan. Catherine and Ken Cole at the Grapevine, Snap Fitness, Wilson's the Paint Store, Cutter's Edge, Hunters Bay Radio, Splat Pest Control, Soapstones, Huntsville and Baysville Curling Clubs, Wooden Penny, Stratton Homes, Sandy Forsyth Architect, Landon Furniture Store, Claude Dowdy, Chris House, and Jamie Morton with financial incentives, and our local record shop. So that's what's been happening so far. It's amazing. And I want to point out as well that Lauren and Bob and I are working on a retention incentive strategy. And part of that, there's a bunch of other businesses that want to give to that so that we can have events and whatnot to recognize our so critical healthcare workers in our town. And the last one I want to mention is Kate Monk, who manages her dad's foundation, which is the William S. Monk Foundation, is giving us a very generous donation. And she wants outside the box thinking. And she is helping us right now work on keeping a doctor's office downtown in the downtown core. So again, I never in my wildest dreams would I thought we'd be this successful so quick. I should also mention that we have, I believe, 2, maybe 3 other doctors that have signed on or are coming on that aren't part of this program, but through Practice Ready Ontario or taking over another clinic. So the true number might be, by summer 25, it could be up around 8 or 9 doctors. So thank you for the unwavering support from council and the tons of help we've gotten from staff. So proud.
That's great news. Lauren, do you want to follow up on that one?
Through you, Chair Armour. Also, just to add to that, with this whole incentive program, we've been getting a lot of coverage in the media and the news, and we haven't even hit the ground running with marketing. But we've also been able to get a lot of interest from physicians that maybe aren't part of family medicine. So that's been a great win as well. There's been like about several individuals, I'll just say that have come forward and have inquired about working, either in the emergency room or other kind of specialist kind of offerings. So this has been a really great incentive and program. And yeah, that's just good news.
That was Mayor Elcock.
Thank you, Chair Armour. It's a comment I want to, it will be repetitive, but to thank Lauren for all of the work that you've done on this. I know it's been unbelievable and it's occupied a lot of your time, and you've done a fantastic job. And to all of the doctors that were involved as well, it's crazy. But I'd be totally remiss if I didn't thank Councillors Stone and Morrison for all of the work one, coming to the table, taking the risk, bringing us all along. And you know, when you started with, we're going to go out to the community, we're going to talk to everybody. And when you went through that list, Councillor Morrison, it's phenomenal. And I just think in many respects, it's one of those things where it's been a catalyst to bring everybody together and feel really good about this strategy moving forward. And so when you talk about the next step of retention, I think, you know, by listing all of the people we know and love in the community, that's part of retention. That's saying, you're welcome here, and this is, and it goes on. And at the end of the 5 years, I can't even imagine that they'd want to be anywhere else, right? So I'm just so incredibly grateful, and thank you for everything on that. And I guess I do have one little quick question. It is so great to hear about Tracy's Day, right? And knowing that some of the doctors are actually starting new practices, and so that immediately goes to the wait list. At what point can we start updating the wait list so that we have ideas around the numbers? And I don't want to, jump into that quickly, but for so long we've talked about the wait list keeps going up. And at what point can we start saying, actually, it's going down? And any idea around that?
So through you, Chair Armour, at this point in time, it would be managed, that wait list is managed through the Algonquin Family Health Team. So I know that they're doing their best to manage and give the patients that need the certain connections and triaging them with the different levels of service and et cetera. So at this point in time, I'm not sure, but however, I would say as we continue to work on our goal, we'll definitely make a significant impact. And I hope that by that time, I can report back to council with even more good news, so.
That's great stuff. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair Armour. I also just want to thank Councillor Stone and Morrison and Lauren for the work that you've done. This is such a good news story. It's probably one of the more important items that this council has been involved in. And it's a success story for not only Huntsville, but for this council. And it's just fantastic to see the amount of interest that it's generated with the physicians that want to come to our community. This program is making a difference in Huntsville, and I'm just really proud to have been a part of it on this council.
Do we have any other questions? Not seeing any. So I do have the motion, just to clarify. So it's 60,000 to come and take over current practice. 70,000 if you take over current practice and add 200 minimum to your wait list, or from the wait list, and then 80,000 if you start complete practice. Okay. So that is the motion on the floor. All those in favor? And that carries. Fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to turn on to 6.3.3. We have Corey here. It has to do with report number DEV 2024-54 OSPCA Canine Pound Services Contract. And we also have a motion with this one. It's moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. It's recommended that the new agreement be entered into with Muskoka OSPCA for the provision of canine impound services. And further, that the agreement enables a recurring annual renewal, provided that the costs and terms of the service arrangements are satisfactory to the town. And further that the Director of Development Services or their designate be authorized to enter into the agreement with the Muskoka OSPCA for the provision of canine impound services, conditional on any associated fees are included with the department's yearly budget. And further, that bylaw 2023-130 being a bylaw to delegate authority, be amended to reflect this delegation. Anyhow, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I just want to highlight a couple points as part of the report and the agreement. So this is an update to our current agreement. It actually did expire in January 1st of 2024, but they have been providing pound services to us currently. This agreement does expire on the 31st of December 2027. We have been using the SPCA for the last 7 years, and prior to that, we utilized a private boarding facility that was local to Huntsville. That was right after after the Huntsville Animal Shelter had closed. Staff do have full access via a key and passcode to the SPCA for after hours, so it's anytime after 5 p.m. if a dog is picked up and brought down to the center. The SPCA do have the tools to run a microchip. If it is microchip, they can track the owner down at that point fairly easy. And then Section 3.11, liability insurance has been increased to $5 million as per the town's insurance broker request and requirement. I'd also like to note that Section 2.11 was there's been a section or amendment on a revised section or revised contract of for the SPCA that notes that if an animal is brought in and the owner is not known, that there's a $250 max vet bill amount that can be authorized by the town. That's to keep in line with the budget line for veterinary expenses. And I'm here for any other questions if there is any.
Thank you very much. Councillor?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Armour. Just a question. You said, thank you for the report, Corey. In the report, you said that only $160, is that $160 was spent historically over the last 4 years dealing with dogs? Like, is that correct? Even though you've budgeted 500? Yeah. Okay, and then, but the actual, if I may, the bylaw enforcement department, the canine impound services, is budgeted for $16,000.
So that's through you, Chair. So the 16,000 is the amount for the 2024 year. So it is 16,000 for the SPCA to keep a kennel open for us, have that care open for any dogs that may be brought in during that 2024 year.
Okay.
Any other questions around the table? Not seeing any. I'll call the questions. All those in favor? And that carries. Thanks again. And now we have Director Maxwell coming to the table. That's 6.3.4. It's a report number DEV 2024-78, Heritage Permit at St. Mary's Church. And we do have a motion for this as well. It's moved by Councillor Cloutier, seconded by Mayor Elcock. Whereas the Incorporated Synoid of the Darcy of Algoma is proposing to sell the St. Mary's Church building and the neighboring property owner. It is not yet known whether or not the church structure will be able to be removed. Therefore, it's recommended that the committee approve the heritage permit application for relocation or demolition of the St. Mary's Church. All yours.
Thank you, Chair Armour. The report before you speaks to heritage permits and why they're required. So under the Ontario Heritage Act, any property that's on our of interest list, if they're demolishing a structure or removing a structure, they need to get approval from council. And they're provided 60 days. Council has 60 days in which to do that approval. In this instance, the church is on Raymond Road, and a neighboring property owner is going to move the church onto their property if it's feasible. If not, the church will have to be demolished. And then at some point in the future, the diocese has said that they would be looking to have the municipality take over the cemetery as well. So that is it in a nutshell. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Do we have any questions? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair Armour. Through you to Kirsten. There's an active cemetery there still, right?
No, the cemetery is closed.
It's closed. So it's closed, but there's still bodies there and headstones there.
Yes. It's not, sorry, nobody is able to be interred there as it stands, but there is still a cemetery.
Has the town assumed responsibility of that cemetery yet? So
No.
that's coming soon?
It is the intent of the diocese to ask the town to take it over.
Interesting. Okay. We end up with all these cemeteries that we have to take over and no benefits of the real property on the property. So is that something that could be viable for the municipality to own rather than have them sell it to a private party? We're already taking over the cemetery and all the responsibilities with it. I've been on the property. The cemetery is 15 feet away from the back of the building. There's not many, well, what appears to be not many, but you never know, interned there. I just wonder if that's, you know, an option we should consider. Is there any value in it for us? I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that or anything, but.
Does anybody want to tackle that question? No, I guess not. Mayor Alcock.
I thank you, Chair Armour. I'm not sure I want to tackle the question, but I'm just clarifying. So you're suggesting through this application that if we're allowing them to move the church or demolish, depending, that they take the,
Well,
I'm not quite.
we're losing all our heritage structures.
Right, I know. I hear you. And that,
And
yeah.
I don't think in 2 generations there's going to be any left.
Right.
When do we stop them all from disappearing is my query. And we're assuming the role of the cemetery. It's a beautiful building.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do we just inquire, we have to take over the cemetery. Do we want the building? Does it have future value for this municipality? I think it's a consideration we should make.
May I follow up?
Yeah, follow up, absolutely.
I think that's really interesting. But I was looking at this report and I had a similar question too about, this could end up being demolished and it is a beautiful building and all of that. But the intent was to move it, right? So that was one. And I looked at the consultations and the Huntsville and Area Historical Society had absolutely no objections with this proposal, which kind of, I thought, well, if they're signing off on it, are they hopeful that it will in fact not be demolished? So, and maybe you could talk about that a little bit, because that would be the ideal, if that's the true intent.
Thank you. Yes, they are hopeful that the building can be moved. They did request that they be provided access to document the structure before it is moved in the, if there's any potential that it's going to have to be demolished. But the Synod has not provided me with any additional information as to how we would take over the cemetery, if there's any, and I don't know much about how we obtain cemeteries. I know that we're not allowed to refuse them, but if there is opportunity for any funds that the Synod has because of the cemetery, we could also ask for that to be transferred to the municipality, if feasible.
Follow up? Counselor Fitzgerald?
I guess it's worth asking the question, or do we need to have a greater conversation about this? Because it's going to happen more and more. We're almost out of little churches and cemeteries for us to be given, aren't we? So, do we have none left and let them all go? Or do we save 1 or 2?
That's a good question. I know at the AMO conference this year, I was part of a delegation from Bracebridge, and they were looking for funding for these facilities from the provincial government. So as they're being given to us, we now take care and control of them. We're paying, look after the cemeteries that are no longer active, et cetera. So I know it is on the radar right now of the provincial government.
Yeah. I just think, remember the past, embrace the future, and I think we're forgetting one of those components there along the way, and have been for a long time, just letting stuff go. So I'm not saying we need to do it or have to do it, but we can't not investigate the possibility of trying to save some of these structures. So there's a couple left.
Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, just to be clear, the building is not being demolished, correct? The building is being moved to a new. They could, my thought goes to the, for an example, the little church that was on Highway 60 that was moved to the property also on Highway 60. And it is being used for weddings, it's being used for other things. It's the integrity of the building and the history of it is still there, but it's being used. And it's being used by a commercial venture, I think, or a family that has it. But so I think, I don't think our municipality has the resources to take on all of these buildings. That's my concern. But I hear what you're saying, Councillor Fitzgerald, that we don't want to lose the history, but we don't have the resources to keep them up.
Follow up?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not suggesting we have all the buildings. I'm worried at what point there's nothing left. There's no little churches. There's no historical evidence of what went on here, what happened here, because we're saying, oh yeah, you can move it, but what if it doesn't move successfully and then it's gone?
If I
Follow up with that one?
Thank you. If I may, once again, the Historical Society is always looking for members, but I can, I'll put that out to you as well. But all joking aside, we do have a Historical Society that are very, very concerned about the issues that you've brought up, Councillor Fitzgerald. And I don't think that they would ever allow us to lose all of the buildings for sure. So point taken, and I hear what you're saying, but I think we do have a society that's going to be very, they're very engaged and very concerned about our history. So,
Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair Armour. And I want to drill down into Councillor Fitzgerald's kind of first thought of we're taking over the cemeteries as we do without any benefit. And if this building does get moved and then the land is vacant, is there any benefit to us taking that over, selling it off for housing, or doing something to recoup some finances to allow us to maintain the cemeteries? Or is the land somewhat useless once the church is gone? I don't know. But I think it's something worth exploring.
That's interesting. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair Stone, or Armour, sorry. My comments are more to do, and you alluded to it, more to do with how we are continually being asked, really forced, to take on all these cemeteries. And, you know, there's no provincial help, there's no funding, and we all know how stretched our parks people are now. The problem is when we take these on, they become our problem forever. I really hope that municipalities are continuing to advocate on, you know, on our behalf to the provincial government to try to get funding. I hope there's, I don't know, maybe the CAO could comment on if there's any, you know, degree of organization from municipalities to try to get help for this issue.
CEO.
Thank you, Chair Armour. So I know that we have seen correspondence going back and forth, most recently with a resolution that has been circulated that I do believe may be coming to the next council, but requesting the province to assist with things like that. The cost, as the Deputy Mayor indicated, we did attend that delegation, and municipalities across Ontario are struggling with having to take ownership of the cemeteries and how to maintain them. And I do certainly appreciate Councillor Fitzgerald's position on the importance of heritage. There are grants available. I don't know specifically for if the municipality were to own it, and because the building would obviously have to be taken care of. It sounds like it might not be in a good state of repair, so that would certainly mean that the municipality would have to add it to its infrastructure and would have to go in a capital plan, and we'd have to make sure that we maintained it adequately. But we could certainly look into whether there are grants available. I don't have that information before me today.
Director McKenzie would like to chime in.
So I was just going to add one thing, just because it did come up just about severing, I believe, severing the property. I know we've looked at that before, and I don't know if I have the exact numbers, but I know there's a big process that's involved when you start separating out the cemetery from the other rest of the lot, and you usually need an archaeological dig done or study done at that point. So it is very costly to get into that. So I would just want to add that.
Thanks for that. Councillor Fitzgerald.
So, just the devil's advocate, I know we've had some success with older buildings and properties, cemeteries. We converted Hutchison Cemetery to office space. Even the other side of the coin on this property is if we have to assume the cemetery, why don't we assume the building and recoup some of the money that's going to take to operate the cemetery and lease the building out or rent the building out, or even affordable housing. Churches get converted all the time. Just think we sometimes don't look at the broad enough view of what's happening.
So, Councillor Fitzgerald, are you suggesting that we purchase the church? Because I think that's why they're trying to sell it, right? Is that not correct, Director?
Yes, that's correct. And if I could just add that the existing property is quite small. I think it's less than an acre, and it is on the very furthest edge of Huntsville, Raymond Road. The driveway to the property is actually on the neighboring parcel, and so it doesn't have access from Raymond Road currently. It's directly anyways. And we haven't reviewed the building to see what the state of the building is from that perspective, and if there's any potential for its reuse or adaptation.
Councillor Clark, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair Armour. Just for clarification, I mean, the report clearly says that it sounds to me like they have a buyer already. You know, so that's to me, we can talk all we want about, you know, what we may or may not want to do, but they've already have a buyer for the property, so it's kind of irrelevant.
Excellent. Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Armour, and Councillor Clark jumped me to the gun on that. That's the way I interpreted the report, that's already in process, so that option for us is not there, not that I'd support it, but I totally understand where you're coming from, Councillor Fitzgerald, and this, we were all involved in the Medill process, and it's turned out really well because a new organization was created to preserve it and do all of the wonderful things they're doing. And I looked at this and thought, oh, it'll be awful if in fact it ends up being demolished, but that's another process. And as soon as I saw that the Huntsville Historical Society had no problem with this, I thought, okay, then it was okay by me. But I hear where you're coming from.
Councillor Morrison?
Yeah, I agree with Mayor Alcock on that. I think just the point of clarification, though, they have a purchaser for the building, not the land. So they're not actually selling the land. So to Councillor Fitzgerald's point, if we ever did want to own the land, hearing what Director Maxwell says, I don't think we do. And being on the town-owned lands working group and us trying to divest ourselves of land we don't want. But just to clarify, I think they're just buying the building.
Councillor Schumacher, the last question.
Thank you. Well, not really a question, it's more of a comment. I mean, I've been to a wedding at that church. It is quite a lovely little church. But yes, I would agree with Director Maxwell's comment on the property. It's not large and there is a bit of a sloping aspect to it. It's not something that we would really want to look at purchasing it and creating. It's kind of, out of the way. And of course, driving by it, a lot of fencing up right now and a lot of digging happening because of the structure. I would agree with not taking that property.
All right, everybody. Does everybody remember the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that carries. Thanks, everyone. Hello and welcome back, everyone. We're going to move on to 6.4, which is corporate services, and I'll turn it over to Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair Armour, and we will go into item 6.4.1. We have report number Corp 2024-53, Eklund OSRA closure 747 Canal Road that returner will present, and I do have a motion moved by Mayor Alcock, seconded by Deputy Mayor Armour. It is recommended that closure of the original shore road allowance abutting 747 Canal Road, Eklund, receive preliminary approval in accordance with section 6.7 of the Permanent Highway Closure Policy, Development-11, and further that the owner pay all survey, legal, and associated expenses. With that, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Morrison. So this report is with respect to 747 Canal Road and the requirement to purchase the shore road abutting the property. As you know from Dr. Eklund's deputation, he is objecting to the requirement to close the shore road. Staff met with Dr. Eklund and provided him with some options that would require council approval. However, he was not in favor of any of the options presented to him. Staff recommends approving the purchase in accordance with our policies. However, I have also included some alternative options for council's consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that motion or on that presentation? Councillor Cloutier.
When, through you, Chair, when the options were put towards Dr. Eklund, what was the feeling of doing any partial of it, or it was just no to the whole thing, or what was his scenario?
I don't think he agreed to any requirement to purchase the shore road at all.
But what about paying any of the other costs? Was he in for any of that?
Didn't sound like it, no.
Okay.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair Morrison. I don't recall anywhere along the line not allowing someone to obtain the shore road allowance without paying for it. Anyone in the last 2 terms? I don't think we've ever accepted it. Maybe someone can enlighten me why we're considering it now.
Anyone want to address that? Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Chair Morrison. Not to carry this on for too long, I know that when he was first trying to put this dock in back, I think they originally pinned his property, and there might have been some mix up in some paperwork, and that's how we got to where we are today, I believe. This is a different than other normal closures of shore allowances.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Over to Councillor Cloutier, and then Mayor Alcock.
I think we made a big mistake on some of this. Most of this, some of this falls upon us from letting them put the dock in the first time and then have to be taken out in refusal. So I kind of like to put a motion forward, if I could, to do option 2, but just with A and B, and he has to pay a C. So this way here, it's not costing us any money. So he'll have to pay the survey and the legal associated costs with taking it over.
Okay, so Councillor Cloutier is wanting to put an amendment to the motion on the table, which I think Jessica can put up on the screen, and then we can have discussion on that. And just quickly to Councillor Cloutier's comments, he is correct, but there was an error in the registration system, in the PIN system, that caused what happened. So it was staff following what they would always normally follow, but there was an error that caused that to happen. That wasn't our fault, if you will, but it did result in where we are today. Okay, so Jessica, you put it up there, and I think then Mayor Alcock could be first to speak. Okay, do you want me to read the changes or, okay, so I'll just read the parts in red. And further that, notwithstanding sections 2.1, 2, and 6.72, the following amounts be waived: the OSRA application fee of $1,125 and the OSRA cost per square meter of $15, and everything else remains the same. So Mayor Alcock, you'll be discussing the amendment.
Thank you, Chair Morrison. I know this is an unusual situation, and to Councillor Fitzgerald's point about, I can't recall us doing this before. I can't either. But I also can't recall a situation where there was a case where the CPP permit was issued without requiring this as a condition. And so to me, it is a real one-off, and it kind of has an impact on the outcome when you then go back and ask to recoup your costs on closing the Shore Road allowance. So I do think this is unusual, and if we look at this and say, well, is this precedent setting? Well, I don't think we have other cases where we have approved a CPP without the condition. That doesn't happen. I haven't seen that before. This is a first time for me. I don't think that will happen again. And so for that reason, I would support the proposed amendment that Councillor Cloutier is suggesting, and I think it is absolutely legitimate to include legal and survey costs, because certainly this will have an impact on his property value. So I would support the proposed amendment.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock. Any other comments? Councillor Stone.
Thank you. I kind of view it as a legal non-conforming, much like when there's an old cottage that's very close to the water and we allow it to continue to be there. His dock was there for 55, 57 years. And we saw the pictures of that, and the ice took it out. If he had just repaired it, it would still be there. It seems very reasonable that we continue to let him have the dock that was there. And it's a modest dock, and he's been a wonderful steward of the shoreline. And that goes a long way with me. It's beautiful. And like I said, the dock is very modest, and I can go forward with what's been proposed.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, I'll just reiterate, for me, it's a very reasonable and fair solution. And the fact that when you look at it from the lake and see how much protected shoreline is there, but it also accomplishes two things. It allows the dock to be there, but also gets some land off our books for liability, and it's just a win-win. So with that, I will call the amendment. All those in favor? Okay, and then I'll call the original motion as amended. All those in favor? Okay, and that carries. Thank you, Marie. Okay, we're moving on to Director McKenzie presenting for information only 6.4.2. The report is Corp 2024-52 and it's a capital project update 2024-6.
Thank you, Chair Morrison. So we do have our monthly update for our capital projects before you today. We are planning having another update with photos at the November meeting, so we apologize. We don't have any fancy photos today. So just a couple of things. There's surveillance and security. That'll be changing to 2025 based on the report that we just had previously, as well as the door fob system. Fire communications radios, it is in progress, but will likely not be completed until 2025. Roads maintenance, no changes from September to October. Roads capital, we've added additional roads to the list from savings that we've experienced over the year. For example, Center Street South. Otter Lake Road, additional work was completed due to savings with planned completion in 2025. South Wasiusa Lake Road, it increased the forecast from last time from 350 to 773 in October. And in parks, only a few projects remain for 2024 with planned completion in October. The cemeteries, the Hutchison Columbarium, we're planning to complete. We moved that to have planned completion in 2025. fleet, just one item to note for the emergency response vehicle 2 for fire. We've actually received this now, so that should be marked as complete and will be at the next update. Algonquin Theatre projects are still in process, planned completion 2024. And I think that's it for a new project or any changes. Anyone has any questions?
Thank you, Director McKenzie. That's a great update, and I will pass over to Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair Morrison, and thank you, Director McKenzie. Yeah, I agree. Really great update. Love looking at all of this. I was curious, the Medill Church Columbarium, was that on there? On the list? Was Medill Church, the Hutchison was Hutchison, but Medill also has a columbarium. I know, but doesn't this include, or this doesn't have any duns on it, or it's all planned completion?
Sorry, I believe the columbarium was done last year or the year before. Yeah, it was done.
I just attended a picture taking thing out there, but we did road work there.
If I may, there was also some landscaping, I believe, that was done there. So that's
Right.
probably that's the part
That's
that was
the
done
why.
this year. Yeah.
Okay. So, right. Oh, right. Okay. So that's why. So it wouldn't be on here at all. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions on the capital project update? Well, that was information only, so no. Councilor Cluche, yeah, go ahead.
Through you, Chair. Gun Club Road. I know because we're upgrading that so that it can be full loads on half loads. Is there going to be asphalt on it before half loads come this year? Well, okay. All right.
Okay, the answer that there is?
Yeah.
Okay, yep, great. Thanks, Director Bissonnette. Councilor Schumacher?
I know it said the Conroy and Utterson Parks completed October 2024, but I believe we have a paint issue for color and it will not be complete until next year. Is that correct?
We have had some maintenance that we've been looking at with that project. So we are looking at that one, and we will have to bring up a further update probably at the November meeting. Because there is it's planned for completion this month, but I believe it may extend beyond that.
The color that they used for the lines is discontinued, is my understanding. So we have to try to find some different options.
Our manager of Parks and Cemeteries is working on that project as we speak. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Councilor Clark.
Thanks, Chair Morrison. Just a quick thanks to the operations staff for their work on South Wasiosa Lake Road. That is a very improved situation out there. And I've had, the only calls that I've had is people to say thanks for looking after it and making it better. And they're very happy to hear to see it in the condition it is now, and that'll get us through until the spring when it's redone. So thanks for the operations department for all your work on that.
Thank you, Councilor Clark. And as a guy who drives that road, my shocks thank you as well. It's been great, much better. Anything else on that? Okay, well then we're going to move along. Get my fancy glasses on. We go to Director McKenzie is going to stay here for 6.4.3. Regarding report number Corp 2024-55, the Town of Huntsville Financial Accounting Software. And I do have a motion that is moved by Councilor Renwick and seconded by Councilor Stone. It is recommended that staff be directed to pause work on the Town of Huntsville's current financial accounting software expansion projects, with the exception of the Human Resource Platform Project, HRIS, and further that staff be directed to review current financial accounting software in 2025 and report back to committee on next steps. Pass over, Director McKenzie.
Thank you. So just a bit of a background. We did implement our financial accounting software back in 2009, and this was done through a joint RFP with the District of Muskoka and the other area municipalities. Since this time, there's been a couple of upgrades, but mainly in 2021, the town was successful in getting a modernization grant, which we partnered with Muskoka Lakes to do some improvements on the software. So we had 4 different objectives. One was to have the property tax portal for residents, the HRIS system, which is human resource system, and then a review of financial accounting processes and improve integration with other software providers. So we do have a lot of integration that happens with all of our various software with this program. Since this time, we've only been able to make progress on mainly one of those objectives, which is the HRIS system. So at this time, we're recommending that we pause on those other objectives and take a more fulsome look at our software and do a full review in 2025, and would probably likely budget for it in 2026 to do this software implementation.
Thank you, Director McKenzie. Any questions, comments? Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair Morrison. So, just reading down in the capital section, so $600,000 for a software upgrade. I'm pretty sure I'm reading that right. I really need some help to understand how that cost is what it is. And are there any grants available for the process of the implementation that may offset whatever costs that there may be for that?
Thank you, and Director. I understand there's some stuff around the lack of vendors and whatnot, but I'll let you address the cost.
So I was explaining to Chair Morrison that it's not quite like going to Amazon and picking out a software product. There's very limited products that are on the market for Ontario municipalities, and most Ontario municipalities are struggling with this right now. So last time we did this implementation, I believe it was around 500,000, and that was in 2009. So we're just ballparking a number right now. We would certainly have to go for RFP. We would probably do, we would look to probably join some of our Ontario municipal partners to join a working group to see what's out there and come up with kind of what we can kind of offer, or what can be offered to us. And we would have to do some investigation on what's out there. We're also looking with our Muskoka partners on this as well to see if they'll be interested in the future on doing a joint RFP again. But it is a very significant product. This is the backbone of everything that we do financially, and all of our software ties into this. So it's what creates all of our financial records.
Councillor Clark and then Councillor Cloutier.
Thanks, Chair. So just a quick follow-up so we've done this process before, as you mentioned, 2009. So when we did that in 2009, was there any grants available for the 500,000 that was done at that time?
So I actually remember the answer to this. There was a lump sum of money that we received from the province of Ontario with zero strings attached to it. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but they wrote us a check, I believe, for $600,000. I believe it was maybe an election year, coming up to an election year. But there was no strings attached, so I think a lot of the municipalities did that. If we do if this project is slated to move forward, then we would certainly be looking for grants to do this project.
Well, let's hope there's another check.
Yeah, another election. Let's go. Bribe us all you want. Okay, Councillor Cloutier.
Through you, Chair. So when we buy a new truck, we know how many years it's going to last, and then buy Zamboni, whatever. What's the lifespan of this system, basically, that the best of your knowledge?
Good question. Director McKenzie.
Well, this one's lasted for this long, so almost past 16 years now. So I think it just depends on the vendor and the viability of the vendor and how much resources they put into it. I know some of the other products right now, they're being discontinued, their support with Microsoft, so they're actually coming to end of life. So those people that are on those systems are going to have to get off them very quickly. So we're trying to be proactive to make sure that we're not being reactive, we're being proactive moving forward on this.
Okay. I guess on that point, it's valid. You guys are always looking at companies that have a track record and will be sticking around, because I know at one point we got told our back office software is just ceasing to exist, and overnight we had to rebound. So it's good that you're being proactive. I think Mayor Alcock, did you have a comment? Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, with that, I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much, and that carries. And We now are moving on to 6.4.4, HR 2024-6, Organizational Reporting Structure Update, and Mr. Duncan will present for information only.
Thank you, Chair Morrison. As per section 5, subsection 1 of the CAO bylaw, we are to report back to council on any sort of organizational structure alignment changes that occur. So recently this month, there was an organizational alignment structure change that involved the marketing and economic development departments being realigned under the corporate and community strategies division, hence allowing the development services division to focus more on its core mandate of building, planning, bylaw, and climate and environmental initiatives, and also the addition of the deputy CAO duties to the Director of Development Services.
Great, thank you for that update. I'll go to Mayor Hart for the first comment.
Thank you, Chair Morrison, and thank you, Keith. I just wanted to say I think this is a great move. It makes all the sense in the world, and I think your reference to allow the Development Services Department to focus on core mandate, that will certainly provide some relief to that division. And I also think the move of economic development over to Director Frame and marketing makes, again, it fits in beautifully, as was noted in the report, with the strategic direction of the corporation. So I really support this change.
Thank you very much, Mayor Alcock. To Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Morrison. And just a comment, thank you, Keith, for the report. I just wanted to sort of call out one little comment that you made, and it just sort of stuck with me, but the quote was, "the evolving landscape of our town." And I think that this report and what we've done structurally is helping as we move forward with with our town. So I also wanted to say I love the drawings in there, because I mean the diagrams of seeing what we're going to be. It's always good to see the structure of it that way. So thank you for the report.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? And I reiterate what Mayor Alcock said. I think that was falling down under Director Frame's umbrella, seeing how she is in charge of the directives list and getting things done. It really does fit perfectly. So kudos to the staff for bringing forward a proactive approach. And with that, I would hand it back to Mayor Alcock to take over as chair.
Thank you, Chair Morrison. And I guess we should also be thanking CAO Corey for proposing all of this, and also recognizing it's really helpful for the organization to have a deputy CAO, because that will also benefit the corporation as well. So thank you, CAO Corey. And with that, we're back to new business, and we only have one item here. And that is our committee discussion around Rebecca Mello's presentation on saunas. And I know that she had, asked that she would ideally love to see the saunas on the docks. And it's a big ask, we all recognize that as we said earlier, about liability and legality and all of that stuff. But I am going to just open it up on the floor and see if there's any feedback at all. Yes, Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it is a wonderful idea, but I don't think it's something that our municipality would take on at this time, due to some of the comments that you just made about insurance and about liability. But I think if there are any businesses or any commercial ventures that are listening to this, this might be something that a business in town might want to take on. I think it has lots of possibility, and I think it has such benefits for our residents if it does. So, but I don't think it's something that our municipality would be taking on, or I would not be in favor of doing it at this time.
Okay, appreciated that. Yes, Councillor Morrison.
Basically echoing Councillor Renwick's comments, but also saying what I love about that is it's a year-round thing. So I would encourage Rebecca, she's so passionate about it, her or partners or somebody else getting involved, but also coming to HMATA, coming to us at that board level, because that is something that we could support, bringing tourism year-round to Huntsville. So I think it's a very cool idea.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that would be really nice direction to give to her, and also an exciting place to present, right? Because a lot of uptake there for different things. So that's great. Did I see your hand, Councillor Fitzgerald? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Okay, Councillor
I was going
Schumacher.
to say I would concur, and yeah, maybe Algonquin Outfitters down there at the bottom would look at doing something along those lines, because I think it is a benefit. I mean, my birthday this year, I went to Veda Spa, which is quite that opportunity. And so, yeah, it would be nice to have some sort of that type of concept here as well, but I don't think it is a town venue.
Okay, I think we're getting the message loud and clear, but we can ask our deputy clerk to convey the conversation, maybe the direction as to going to the HMATA board. That's good? No motion needed for sure. I know. I wasn't suggesting a motion. I'm just saying. I was just looking to you for advice, which you gave me, which was excellent. All right. Thank you for the discussion. And I think that's at least something to give her to go on. Okay. All right. So we don't have any other new business. I'm looking around the table. I don't see anything. We don't have anything arising from closed because we didn't have it closed. And that's it. So I only have one motion left. Would you like me to read it, Councillor Stone? You sure? Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm doing it right now. I have a motion moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. It is recommended that we do now adjourn at 11:13 a.m. All those in favor? And that carries.